Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Lauren and I make videos a couple of times a week about books and random things. So today I'm going to be doing a book review of I Hate This About Me by Aitch Alberto. I haven't done a book review in a hot second, and that is because essentially I'm really bad at doing them, and we know this. I was awful at, I've always been horrific at doing it. I've had a lot of time to think about what I want to do with my YouTube channel and also my website, because I have a website which is runontheroad.com, and also I have a podcast which is called Hawking to Copy, and it's a Stranger Things podcast, and I basically just wanted to really up the stuff that I talk about and talk more about it and do more reviews and do more like reading vlogs, and I just had this moment of like knowing that I have this platform where we can talk about books that I love so much that I just haven't done the best job of doing that in the last couple of months. So we're doing a book review today because this book is absolutely wonderful. So I actually read this book back in June and I adored it, and like I said, I'm awful at book reviews, so I'm only just getting around to it now, but it is wonderful. So, for those that don't know, Aitch Alberto is a filmmaker, and they are actually currently in the middle of adapting two of my favourite books. So one is Gracefully Grayson by Amy Polonsky, which is a wonderful story which focuses on Grayson, who was born in the wrong body and is actually a girl. And it focuses on Grayson's struggle and coming out and sharing that with the world and sharing who Grayson is with the world, and it is absolutely wonderful, and I am so excited that it is being adapted into a film. Henry is also adapting Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Larry Sands into a movie. You know me well enough to know how I feel about that. Absolutely buzzing. That's actually how I found out about Henry and who Henry was, and followed Henry on Twitter, and they are genuinely one of the loveliest people going, and when I found out that they had a book, I was right on that, because I read the premise of the book and it was absolutely wonderful. I downloaded the ebook version, and I will link in the description where you can get the ebook from, and genuinely read it in one sitting. It's not very long, but it's so important and so impactful, and it's so rare that you can have something like that in so few words can say so much, and that's what I loved about it so much. And I Hate This About Me has become something which I have turned to in a lot of time where I've been questioning lots of things and trying to figure things out. I've actually taken words from I Hate This About Me and put them in my therapy journal to have there to just remind me, and it is absolutely wonderful. So I Hate This About Me is a non-fiction book, and it is sort of like a memoir. One of the very first lines in the book is, "This book is a manifestation of someone I wish I had growing up." And honestly, I wish I also had it when I was a teenager, but I don't think we ever stop growing, and I think it is, even though I've officially grown up, I think you still are growing up and you're still learning loads of things and figuring things out about yourself, and I think this can help no matter what part of life you are growing up into. It is very poetic, very lyrical. The way that it is laid out is not in the sense of a traditional novel. There are some pages where there's only a couple of words, other pages which is laid out kind of in like a list or in epistolary form. It's written in such an interesting way, and this is what I really liked about it, is because it's not this typical kind of layout. Henry has so many different ways of telling their story and getting their experiences and what they want to say across, and that's what I loved so much about it. Like, it felt so raw and felt so honest, like Henry had taken their thoughts and like had just taken kind of such a raw part of themselves and just put it out on these pages, and that then really helps you as the reader are like able to identify the bits that are that you can also see yourself in, because it's so raw and the feelings are so there, and like there's such a validation in those feelings, which I think is wonderful. And I think if you read it, you will get that, and you will understand that like you're not the only one that's feeling like this, and that you can, other people feel the same way, and that you're not alone. And that's what I love so much about it. Boy is used a lot in the book, but Henry does say that it's just used as a general term for all genders, all identities throughout the book, and that's what I really liked about it. I liked that like little message that just reminds you like all of these things, and that's, yeah, I loved that about it. It is so accepting. The book felt like a giant hug. Like there was so many bits in it that I was reading and like genuinely was getting emotional, and not because it was sad, but because it was so nice to see myself in something that was so full of feeling. Because when you're trying to discover parts of yourself, when parts of yourself are not what you have been like told, or that not that you've known, or you've always felt like a little bit out of place because something didn't sit right, when you then see that, when you then see that that's okay and that's something that lots of people go through, you start to realize that there's actually nothing wrong with you. And I think sometimes you need to hear that in a very specific way. And I just love the way that Henry delivered that within this book, because it felt so personal in the sense that it was how Henry has felt, but also in the personal sense as if it's almost as if it's your feelings put on the page too. And that's what I liked about it. Like, it's such a fantastic piece of writing and such an important piece of literature, because it's done in such a clever way. Like, if you look at I would like, just please download it, like please get this book, and you'll see what I mean about the layout of it and the way that it's delivered, because there's different parts and different structural parts, and it is very poetical in that sense. You know, I feel with the way I'm describing this feels like when I used to analyse poetry for my GCSEs and A-levels. That's how it felt like, and that is such a, I like that, because it's not just like paragraphs and paragraphs, it's okay, this is my thought with this, my thought with this, my thought with this, my thought with this. And that's what I really liked, because I do really like kind of train of thought novels anyway. Like, that's something I love, and I know that's not for everybody, but the way that it's done was really good. But Henry talks about some really important things within the novel, talks about like repressing parts of yourself and how it's okay to be those parts, and you don't have to repress those parts. And no matter what society tells you, no matter what your family tells you, what people around you tell you, if you are that person, if you are you, you should never have to feel like you have to repress that. Henry also talks about some really important parts of history. It talks about like the AIDS crisis and LGBTQ plus history and the impacts that had. And this is something which I touched upon in my June videos, the very small amount I did for Pride Month, because my jaw ended up playing up and I couldn't do my month of videos like I normally like to do. But I did talk about it in June, that it's really important to talk about LGBTQ plus history. I'm really lucky to live in a country where it is not illegal to be gay. Gay marriage is not illegal. Gay people can adopt. Like, there's support for trans people. Like, it's such a big, you know, thing. Like, England is relatively quite good at those things. Yes, there's still discrimination and homophobia and transphobia, of course there is, but there is support there. But then there's also so many countries where that's not the case, which is important to remember. It's also really important to remember that just because we live in this now doesn't mean that this is how it's always been. And even like the 80s and the 90s, especially the 80s where the AIDS crisis was a big thing, that was not the case at all. And people fought for their rights to exist. And when you think about like the Stonewall riots and people that protested and were involved with those riots, like Marsha P. Johnson, like, you have to remember that history and why, like how we got to this point and how we got to this point now, because we wouldn't have done if it wasn't for those people beforehand. And there's a whole bit which talks about that, and talking about looking at your ancestors, looking at your family, looking at the people that came before you that led a path and started this fight so that we can live in the time that we do now, but then also reminding us that they fought so hard and there's still so much of a fight to be done, and we have to continue that fight. Some states in America, it was still illegal to be gay up until 2003, which is not that long ago in comparison. There's also loads of advice in this, there's tips in this, like life realities, which forms a comfort because you see those realities within other people and you know that that's okay, and it's okay that you're experiencing these things, it's okay that you're feeling these things. And I loved that so much. There was a really lovely quote in it which was, pay attention to the way you talk about yourself and your life. I think that that's a really important thing. There's such a big theme of kind of learning from your past. Like, we're not perfect, we can change, we have that opportunity to change, and that's okay. And it's okay that we weren't always perfect. Also, one of my favorite parts is Henry talks about how like your parents are just like you and that they are humans and they also make mistakes. And I think when you're a kid, your parents are like this ultimate, like, you know, like they're your parents, like they're not scared of anything, they don't have to worry about anything, like it's, you know, when actually they did so much of the worrying for you when you were little so that you didn't have to worry. And they're just people that make mistakes and they're people just like you. And I think the older you get, the more you realise that, and I think it's a really good thing to realise, and actually a lovely thing to realise. I just think genuinely this book feels like such a huge comfort, like a massive hug, like it's gonna be okay, you're okay, like take it one day at a time, look after yourself, be yourself, accept yourself, like be nice to yourself. And that's what I loved about it, and that's why I've taken so much comfort from it. Like, I've read this book multiple times since I first read it. Like, sometimes I just like scroll to certain pages and I just read it sometimes in the morning. Like I said, I've written out quotes in my therapy journal that have been really, really helpful. And I genuinely just think a lot of people, especially if there are parts of yourself which you are questioning, which you are wondering about, which you are like worrying about, parts of yourself that you've been told you have to repress, but you shouldn't have to. I think if you read this, I think you could take so much from it. Like, it's so good. I adored it so much. My only criticism of it is that I wish it was longer and that I wish there was more, and I want a physical copy of it so that I can just like have it on my shelves. But honestly, it's so good and I just think it's really lovely, and I just really wanted to share it with you. Like, I just think it could be really helpful because I'm like, you guys, like, I make videos, I talk about things, you guys leave your views of that thing in the comments, and I think there are lots of things, like, you watch me for a reason, you've like stayed on my channel for a reason, and whether that's because you can relate to something I've said or you like the content I talk about, which obviously relates to me because I select books that I, you know, that like are important to me and stuff. I think that if you have even like a slightly similar opinion or viewpoint, or you're wondering things about yourself, or you are similar to me, you'll find comfort in this book. So I really wanted to share it with you guys. Like I said, I'll link it down below where you can get the ebook version. Literally just got it emailed as a download and it's absolutely wonderful and I love it. I'd love to know if you guys decide to pick up I Hate This About Me and what your thoughts of it is. Let me know in the comments so that we can discuss it, please, because it's wonderful. Like I said, if you guys are new here, then I make videos a couple of times a week about books and fandom things. So if you want to stick around and join us, feel free to hit that subscribe button and the little notification bell. And as usual, all the links to my other social medias and also my Stranger Things podcast are in the description down below. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you're doing really, 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 really well, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.